So I had a very pivotal moment in my life when a complete stranger asked me one very simple question, and it completely altered the trajectory of my life after that. So I got married a little later in life, started a family a little later. And so I found myself approaching my 40th birthday. I had to do that math in my head. I'm like, I'm getting old. And I had a 2-year-old daughter at the time. I was working full time in a career I'd been building for over 20 years in a very male dominated space and was kind of the poster board for what the world would call a really productive woman, juggling career and motherhood. And I thought I'd finally gotten to the point in my life where I had all those things I always dreamed of wanting to have: a family, a beautiful home, a great job, even had the 1 point whatever dogs, all of that. Uh, and I wasn't very happy, and I felt really guilty because I wasn't happy. Like, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? Because here I am doing all the things. And it was a Friday afternoon, and I'd gotten off work a little early, and I was pushing my daughter on the swings at the park. And the woman next to me, were chatting, a complete stranger, and randomly she asked me, "What do you do for fun?" And I didn't have an answer. And I don't remember what I said to her, but I somehow muddled through, came home, got through the kind of evening routine, the bath, the books, the songs, the one more song, the 20th song, that, all the stuff to get the kid down, and I made it into my room, and I just collapsed into my closet, and I had a complete breakdown because I didn't realize my life had gotten to a point where I couldn't even answer a simple question of what do I do for fun. And that's when I knew the way that I was juggling it all and planning and managing my calendar and my time was going to kill me. And the irony of it is, that's actually kind of what I did for a living, was to go into organizations and redefine all of their processes to help them do things in more efficient, higher quality ways. So that kind of launched me on this journey of creating a new way to plan, manage, and control my calendar and time specifically for women, because men and women are different. And I started it as a need for myself. And now here I am 12 years later running a business that fully serves women in this capacity. And I'm so thankful to that woman in the park. I wish I could meet her again one day and thank her for asking me that question.
I am so grateful that our worlds have come together. And
Me too.
I wonder if that woman in the park saw something in you. Like, I wonder if she
Mhm.
was on the other side and she's like, I can tell she feels lost and just
Mhm.
planted that seed. Do you think so?
Whatever caused her to say that, I'm eternally grateful.
Mm, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, This is my challenge with productivity. People always ask about tips, tricks, hacks,
Oh,
and
don't get me started on hacks.
yeah. But okay, or you see these panel conversations at conferences with, the quote unquote widely successful women, the brand
Mhm.
names that you see everywhere. And they say, how do you balance it all? How do you da 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 da? And you may get a little bit of an honest, like a honest reaction from someone that says, I don't, we don't, balance is a myth. And that's really the depth that people are willing to
Mhm.
go. And I think there's so much more, and people are suffering behind the scenes. So I'm
Yeah.
curious what you see in your community and your
Uh,
experience yourself.
Sadly, I wish I had a better answer, but this is why I'm hoping to change that. So, I think there's kinda two things I see over and over again when I'm looking at women specifically who are being asked that. Because when you ask a man that question, you get a very different answer, and you get something very honest, usually, that's within the realm of their vision, which is very different than a woman's vision in reality. So when I see, perceivingly very successful women that are being asked that, the answer is either someone who's very honest about saying how much they outsource, like a woman that will openly say, which is very rare, "Oh, well, I have a full-time household manager and I outsource this and I have someone that does meal planning." Like, the women that are doing that, I wish they would be 100% open and honest in saying that, but there's almost a shame in admitting it, because then you look like you're not able to, you're not as successful because you're not, quote, doing it all. Then on the flip side, you get people who just kind of throw out keywords that they think are helpful. Oh, I do time blocking. Oh, well, I get up every morning and I meditate. Oh, I just identify my top three and I only focus on those until I get these things done. And at least in my experience, when I've dug deeper with the individuals giving that advice, I tend to uncover that either there is a lot of paid help in their home that they're not talking about. Perfect examples. I've had some women tell me I should just get up a little earlier when they had a full time au pair living in their home. I had no help with childcare, so they're giving you how they're running their time without being honest of the support system that they have in the back end, or they don't have children at all. And so if you go to, someone that's a quote expert in the space teaching and selling a course on time management, and this is a woman that has no caregiving responsibilities, their solutions are not going to work for women raising children.
So I have three boys in my home, my husband, my mother, two dogs. Um,
It's a lot of energy.
a lot of masculine energy
Yeah.
as well. Like my mother's here, but I have realized like I used to have a lot of negative beliefs, we're like men and women. And I see there's always like a poo poo on the gender roles and expectations. And I will honestly say, and I know this biologically, the male and female brain, not even talking about uh, like gender roles, societal's expectations, they operate differently.
Oh, 100%.
And so it's like, who are we trying to be? But there was something that you were saying that I want to dig into a little bit. Yes, women are not being honest, especially women who have more maybe financial resource. You have to, as you grow and scale your life, you have to outsource. And I've seen this with colleagues where they will have extra support and then they're just shamed, right? They're
Yes.
shamed by the
Yes.
additional
Or
support.
would must be nice. I mean, just in whatever way it comes. Yeah.
So let's go to that must be nice because there was a moment in my life where I was a single parent on government assistance and going to school full time and then saying not this, not this, I got to figure out a way. And there I always had a little bit of a mindset like the rebel in me does very very well because I like to question everything. As a
Mhm.
child, adults did not appreciate that. As an adult, it's serving me. So I'm like, how can I? And there's this little edge of, yeah, I can't, I'm not going to hire au pair. I don't have the financial resources for a house manager. And to be honest, it's probably way too much that I need. So, what do you say to that person that's like, must be nice? And
My
let's
first
start where we
response
are.
is yes, it's amazing. I know for like when we finally made a shift just a few years ago to hire outsourcing every other week, a delightful couple comes in and cleans our home. And if someone hears that, yes, I have people that clean my house every other week and they say must be nice, my initial answer is always yes. It's incredible. Because even that almost diffuses something. And I like to acknowledge how wonderful that is. Then I get to say, and guess what? It hasn't always been this way. Here is the journey we went on to get there, which included, and I know it's something you love to talk about as well. I keep a running list of things I don't want to do anymore. Like things that really are just negative energy sucks for me, negative time sucks. And on it was cleaning, right? And initially it was, well, this isn't in our family's financial budget to hire this out. So I said, well, then what can I do? If hiring someone today is not an option, what step can I take today? Which then started with a family meeting. My family hates it when I start. They know something's coming when I'm talking about, we got to talk about something. And it led to a great conversation between my husband and daughter and myself to say, here's everything that operates that in this house to keep things running. Let's put a name down next to who currently is doing all of these things. And there, in front of everyone's eyes, it wasn't me harping, was sheer data showing 90% of the stuff around the house was being managed by myself. So we said, what do we do about that? So then we came up with a game plan of assigning ownership for different cleaning things to different family members. Well, after about 3 weeks of that, my daughter came in, my husband came in. They're like, so we're thinking maybe we could relook the budget. And maybe if we stop spending money somewhere else, we could free up the funds to bring in a house cleaner. Right. So
Because they
they felt
felt like the
Mhm.
natural consequence of that. And
Yeah.
sometimes there is this phases and stages.
Exactly. And so we
Yeah.
said, okay, what are we willing to stop spending money on to free up the resources for this? And it started with just once a month. And then it grew into now they're here every other week. And so just because something might be oh, must be nice because you're thinking for yourself, I can't have exactly that today. Maybe you can't, but there's probably a step you can take, a
Mhm.
first step that sets you out on the path of it no longer being what it looks like today.
I remember going on the Canadian version of Craigslist, which was Kijiji, and I worked from home. And if my child was too young to be in childcare or I didn't want them to be here, and I was like, I need an hour or two of focus time, I hired somebody for like $20 an hour. And
Mhm.
we had nothing, like, absolutely, like, I'm not kidding. I was afraid to go buy groceries. Like, we had nothing, nothing. I don't know what part of me it was where I'm like, these 2 hours that I'm investing are just priority. And I couldn't fathom, this was the weird thing to me. I couldn't fathom why everyone says, I don't have time, I don't have financial resource, but every year they're at Disney or every quarter they're
The thing is,
vacationing.
we all have the things that are important enough for us to prioritize either dollars or time on, right?
Right.
But we project our values and priorities onto others. So, yeah, the person looking at me going, must be nice because I have a house cleaner, maybe vacationing twice a year overseas and I don't.
Right.
And that's fine. It's different priorities and different things that we choose to spend or not spend time
What
and
I
money
would
on.
say though, if you're resentful or you're angry or someone's triggering, you're like, must be nice. Like, look at that and go, oh, maybe I'm jealous because that's something I won't give myself permission to invest
Mhm.
in.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Such a wild world we live in. Like, the more self awareness you have around, like, I look at time, energy, and financial resource as,
It's total connection.
yes. What's your
Yes.
perspective on that? What do you see? Because when I started, it was just like, I don't have time. I don't have money. Like, I don't have money is such a cultural, deeply rooted belief.
Yeah, and what's interesting is the money part is the one that people focus on, I think, first because it's tangible. We can see it, right? You can log into a bank account and it shows you what you currently have or don't have available, right? The energy and the time are trickier. There isn't by default this thing that we can log in on and check on. Second to that is when it comes to money, like oftentimes there's education provided around that, right? Like you can take a financial literacy class, you can major in things for this, right? Managing our time and managing our energy, we're not being taught how to do that. It's this thing that's kind of floating out there. But when you look at the three of them together, and even someone just making a simple statement of, "Ugh, I don't have enough money," or there isn't enough money. There's a connection there of either I don't have enough time to go get a second job, all the things that they're doing that's now connecting the time to the money and then the energy that is connected into that. Whether it's the actual negative energy coming in around the thoughts of the I don't have enough money, there isn't enough that, all that negative energy that's coming in there, or if it's a I don't have the physical energy to do anything about this either.
Mhm.
I have yet to meet anyone, and I'm sure they're out there, that has true time freedom or time richness that isn't also on top of their finances and on top of their energy.
Yeah.
I don't I don't and I the flip side I think is true though. I know people who financially are very well off, but are not good on the energy and the time scale.
Which is
And I think that's
not,
interesting.
yeah, and I think, like you were saying, they're all connected, and if you can, it's like, where do I not feel free?
Mhm.
And I know we talked about this on your podcast where, and everyone listening to this knows I talk about, how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel? And it's like, okay, time rich. You're going to have that individual. It's like, I am 100%, like I can do what I want when I want, but I feel trapped in other areas of my life. Maybe I don't have control over finances, or I don't currently make anything, or I don't look at it, or, and it's like, as humans, I mean, I have the belief that the more ownership we take, that is freedom. When I take radical responsibility for how I want to feel, doesn't mean I'm feeling that way 100% of the time, but I feel more in control of my outcome.
Well, yeah, and even more in control of if you're having a day, right? I mean,
Right.
we all have them. I know I have the tools to change that,
Yeah.
right? I'm not ever I I no longer am at a point in life, and I used to be there, where I feel stuck and that other people get to own part of who I am and how I feel anymore.
Yeah. I want to talk about extra.
Okay.
Whatever people say, extra, abundance. Um,
I thought you were saying like extra as in like, oh, like my pink Christmas tree is so extra.
no, I love it.
I
No,
was
no,
like,
no.
yeah, I've got a little of that.
I mean, we could say that too, but like the more, right?
Mhm.
Everyone's like, I want more. I want, but we live with this just enough, paycheck to paycheck, just enough. The value of having more, the value of being like, if I have a day, I'm not in a crisis state. Like the value of living in this thrival state. Like I remember my identity being in survival mode, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, and I was used to survival mode. When I went to, because I do this little uh, what am I trying to say? Pyramid, talked about it in my TEDx talk. The next one was the state of momentum. And I'm like, oh, this is scary. I'm so used to being in survival mode all the time that having more feels unsafe to me.
Yes.
And then making thriving in all areas of my life my baseline. I mean, there's always a bump that you have to go through, but what do you believe the value of more? Like, have the extra time, have the extra energy, have the extra financial resource.
So the way I look at it and where I see most people today is different verbiage, same thing as I call it just in time living. And that's how most women are operating. And it's because, unfortunately, I get very tactical when I talk about managing time. Most people teaching time management and productivity start with wake up, make your brain, do your brain dump, right? Get everything out of your brain and get it on your to do list for the day. Circle a top three. There's no science behind that. Stop circling a top three, friends. And then now magically, your goal, AKA your worth,
Mm-hmm.
is connected to how many of those things you check off every day. You're never going to check them all off. So then the next day you wake up, you rewrite the half from yesterday, you flip the page in your planner, you copy the half over that didn't get done, you add 15 more, and rinse and repeat. This is just in time reactive living, where your whole purpose in life is to one day check all the boxes. Bad news is they're never going to get checked. So if we can recognize that and find a different strategy for planning and managing our time, when you're living that way, there will never be space for more.
Mm.
Because the minute there is, you're just going to put more things onto your list, right? And usually they're in service to others. They're not the things that answer your wouldn't it be nice if, right?
Yeah.
Those are not ever making that list. So the transition from this just in time reactive living to one where we get to be very proactive will by default start to create space for more. And what that looks like for me, it means I get to whatever I'm doing at any point in the day, I get to do it guilt free. Meaning if I'm working and not spending time with my daughter, it's an intentional, thoughtful decision, and I get to do that guilt-free because it's serving a purpose for me. If I'm not working and I'm sitting on the couch with a bowl of popcorn and a book, I get to do that guilt-free as well. But I think there's a definite relationship between feeling guilty for wanting first, wanting more or wanting different, and then second, when we're actually in it, it feels so uncomfortable because the first time you sit down to take that break, all you're thinking is all the things you, quote, "should be doing" instead, right? But there's 10 more things I could be checking on our list. That it is not an overnight switch that you can say, "I can get comfortable
Mhm.
having more guilt-free and actually enjoying it." And it's the longer you've been living in just-in-time mode, the longer it's going to take for you to truly experience
Yeah.
what more looks like. And more often than not, more looks to the outside world like you're doing less.
Yes. Okay. So I attract a lot of I'll attract women in different careers, right? Some like you'll have a doctor on a crazy schedule, or you'll have a corporate individual who will say, I have no control over my time.
Yeah,
Somebody else
which is
dictates my
complete
schedule.
yes.
Correct. And then you will
That's the
have
reality today, and I get that. I get that.
or you will have, I call them domestic engineers, like someone who's at home and they're like, I should have time, but I feel like I don't have time. Like everyone has their different version of
Yep.
this, of time debt or just in time.
Yep.
Um, what do you think the number one like characteristic is when you see a woman who comes into your world and then she goes through the process and she's on the other side? Because I'm sure it's not the woman who checks all the boxes. Like, what is the one thing that you notice about her? She's like, yeah, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
So the one who's gone, like, actually done the work to get to the other side?
Yes.
Honestly, it takes someone being at a point where they have finally said, "This is not I am not okay to live this way anymore, and I'm serious enough about it to desire a change."
Yeah.
That's it. Doesn't matter their education, their age, their stage of life, what they majored in or didn't major in, zero relevance. What matters is the actual desire for something to look different. And people
This,
think they have it,
yeah,
but not everybody does.
100%. And I look at, I used to believe people's words.
Hmm.
Now I believe their actions.
Yeah.
Um, I really look how people lead and I see how what their priorities are. I completely do not value any words that come out of people's mouth. I watch how they lead. And
Interesting. Yeah.
what I mean by that is, and I even say this to my children. My kids are 19, 15, and 12. Mom, I'll do it. I'll do it again. I'll do it next time. And I'm like, show me. Your words mean nothing. How do you lead? Lead with integrity. And you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to follow through with every single thing that you say you're going to do, but observe yourself. Am I leading with integrity?
Well, it's even like, when people will say, you're in an argument with a loved one, they're like, "Oh, I love you." And you're thinking that those words mean nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the actions that let me know that you
Yes.
love me, not saying the words.
And the actions, what I'm hearing you say is the actions, you can tell someone is ready when their actions are aligned with what they
Yeah, and
say they want, the
I don't do this
priorities.
anymore, but, a lot of times women in particular, I have a desire to help the world, right? Just as I'm
Yeah.
sure you do. Anytime you see a woman in distress and I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, I can help you and I know this." Early on in business, occasionally someone would come to me and just give me their sob story of why they could not afford to purchase a program and purchase the course and learn from it. And I would get so invested in it and I would listen to their words
Yeah.
and I used to gift the program occasionally. Every single person I gifted my program to, do you know how many of them even watched the first video? Exactly
0.
right. None. Their words and their actions were not the same. If they truly desired the change, I meet other women who join the program. They're like, I first heard about this. So I've been saving up for 5 months and now I've joined. And you better believe they're going through that program and doing every single thing because they had aligned actions showing
Yeah.
they were serious about wanting a change in their life.
I think all women who are really want to make an impact in the world have to learn that lesson,
Yeah.
because I've learned that lesson too. And then, oh, I'm going to write my book. And then, oh, now people won't read the book. And then, oh, I have over 1,000 episodes on my podcast where I give all this stuff away. I have all these freebies. Oh, you want more of me? Okay, I'll give more, 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 more. And it's like, how come that one person that sends me a random email or a DM that's like, you changed my life? And I'm like, we've never even had a conversation because I've dove into this and I've dove into that. And yeah, if you want a rich life, you have to align your behavior with your
Which means you might
desires.
have to do not hard work, but potentially uncomfortable work, right?
Oh,
You know? Because I was thinking about that because we were like, is it hard? I'm like, it really, like the system I teach, it's not like you don't need a PhD to follow my 5 and 10 step weekly planning process. I mean, I
mhm.
could teach it to a 5-year old, but it might make you a little uncomfortable because you're going to have to build a different relationship with time and with energy in order to be successful with it. So, yeah,
Did we have this conversation? Because
I don't
I
think
I'm
so.
so excited right now. I am so triggered by the term we can do hard things. I think we, especially as women, humans in general, we're addicted to hard. So your brain is going to be like, how can I make this really hard? And I'm like, guys, it's not difficult to
No.
send that email or to open your planner. It's emotionally uncomfortable.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just,
I
when
hadn't
you were
thought about that,
inter,
right? We want to make it hard because then we'll feel good because we did it because, well, that was hard. And it's like,
Mhm,
well, it really, like, even one of the steps is simply just write down the list of things that you do on a recurring basis every week, either for work or home. Like, that is not a hard assignment, right?
mhm.
It's not. And people get stuck there because they don't wanna see it all in one place because it makes them uncomfortable. But I'm like, how can you I can't think of any change in life that hasn't stretched me or made me feel a little,
Yeah.
along the way, you know?
Yeah, I think it's just being radically honest with ourselves. People are like, I know
Mhm.
what I need to do, I'm just not doing it. And I'm like, yeah, are you ready for the transformation? Because that I know what I need to do, I'm just not doing it means you actually don't know what you need to do, because it's not a logical problem that you can solve. This is probably an emotional one or something deeper that's happening. So you actually don't know, and you have to be honest with yourself. Like, I'm ready to get support in an unknown way to help me have the transformation that I'm seeking.
Well, you even said I loved it because I wrote it down, I loved it so much, where you said you get to keep what you defend.
Yeah.
So if people keep going, "Well, I just don't have the time to make that list." Well, then great, keep if you're gonna continue to defend that day after day after day, then you will be stuck there. You're going to keep that. Do you want to? Like,
Hmm.
I don't. I
Yeah.
don't wanna be in a space where I'm continually saying, "I will never have enough time for the to do that thing I dream about." Like, I don't want to defend that.
Hmm.
It's kinda like that competition of who had the worst day, right? Sometimes you come in, you're like, you just wanna share a bad day, and all of a sudden, the person next to you is like, "Oh, yeah? Well, here's what happened." I'm like, "I'm not trying to win the I had the crappiest day battle," but I
Yeah.
think a lot of us are a little bit.
Yeah. Cause then it's okay to suffer, or that's how we
Mhm.
create connection. And I know we talked a little bit about that on your podcast of just leaving the toxic culture of, for me, it was motherhood, the first one, and then womanhood, because I was drowning physically and dying. Um, and I'm like, I don't want to live like this. Why am I the only
And that's
one?
aligned with the whole community I can't stand is the hot mess express,
Mm,
right? And it's like, I think it started with good intentions of like, come on, let's just be honest. Sometimes it can be sh
Yeah, it
getting
sucks.
up and out the
Yeah.
door in the morning and all of that, but it's almost turned into this badge of honor to be the hot mess express mom, and it's like, do you realize what we're subtly perpetuating here is that this is what motherhood has to look like. We don't get to shower, we don't have time to brush our hair, we have literally no time to care for our physical bodies, and it's like that's what we're subtly presenting as
Mhm.
the norm, and and this is the expectation.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody wants to actually be there.
No. No. And I think when you set that standard so low for yourself, you don't realize the projection of that in your life. And so then we're like, I get a lot of questions. How do I get my kid to? How do I get my partner to? What, my career, my da 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 da. And it's like, we just need to take a look. How did I actually create some of this? Maybe I need to raise my standard slightly. Just moment.
And even
And
think about what you are showing your kids. I know
yeah.
I know some young adults in my life, young gals in their 20s who are like, "Oh, I'm not having kids. I saw what my mom went through,"
Hmm.
right? I'm like, "Wow, we're showing
We're not being good role models
we're
for
not
the
being great
next.
role models
No.
of showing because there's so much beauty in being a mom, right?
Yeah.
And if that's not what we're highlighting and showing, then yeah, we are painting a pretty ugly picture out there.
I will honestly, I have a different not so much about motherhood, and then we'll wrap it up, is menopause.
Mm.
So I've already been through medically induced.
I am on the other side of menopause myself.
So I feel like the traditional menopause culture is the same as like the motherhood culture. And it is something that scares the shit out of me. The traditional conversation of like, you just wait, honey, you just wait. And so that's why I'm proactive about it. And I seek out people who are like, let's change the conversation and let's get ahead of the curve. And I just will not do that. So I don't think we're being of any service to anyone when you're role modeling worst case scenario.
100%
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
So Megan, you, I would say you are a master. Not only it's like you get them with the physical time management, and then really you're like, let's sprinkle in all the goodness. Um, and I love how you have set up your program, your business and everything. So let everyone know where they can get more of you and your planning system, all of that.
Yeah. So obviously, if you're listening to this, you're a podcast fan. So I do have a podcast, and Heather has been an amazing guest on it. It's called Work Life Harmony. It's out on all the podcast players, and we actually won one of the podcast People's Choice Awards for 2024. So it's a
Awesome.
show I'm really passionate about. And if you're interested in just kind of getting a little glimpse into time management and how I teach a different planning system, the best way to get a little snippet of it is actually in my app. So I have a branded app out in the App Store. It's called the Pink Bee, all one word. And in there, I've got little mini trainings that can help you start to see, like physically see, what does this different way of planning and managing our time look like if we're not writing daily lists every single day. So it's kind of like a little intro to the intro, if you will, to give you some tactical things to start doing today.
So the planning bee,
No,
like
the
oh,
pink
pink.
bee.
Sorry.
Yep.
It's because I was looking behind you and I see all this bee stuff. So the pink
Yes.
bee, B-E-E.
Yep.
Okay.
That is it.
Everyone
You'll see
needs
a
to
big,
download
bright,
that.
hot pink bee on it. So you'll know you're in the right place.
I love it. Megan, you are changing the way women feel, the way that they parent, the way that they lead.
Oh,
So
thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you.